Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Man, and welcome to Thursday's edition of the DCEU Daily. And I've got so much to talk about today, I'm going to have to read it off to you. Yeah, my memory hangover. So anyway, this is what we're doing today. On today's DCEU Daily, Clark Kent in the Batman theory. We listened to Heroic Hollywood's video about potentially Bane being in the Batman as well. We talk about Jared Leto's Joker maybe being in Zack Snyder's Justice League. We talk about Ewan McGregor's Roman villain in Birds of Prey and say how they got it a bit wrong, because instead of being someone who demonstrates toxic masculinity, it's actually a character that young LGBTQ men want to aspire to. And finally, we'll be talking about the possibility of Ben Affleck in his own straight-to-streaming series movie as Batman as well, and what needs to be done for all this to happen. So first, let's talk about my theory that a young Clark Kent will be in Matt Reeves' The Batman. This is shaping up to be a very, very interesting movie. It pretty much looks like they're going to have every single member of the Rose Gallery in The Batman. Now, don't forget, Robert Pattinson's The Batman, he's actually a young Bruce Wayne. He's just started becoming Batman. I think we spoke about this in one of my videos yesterday about his Batmobile, a work in process, a progress, shall I say. His Batman is a work in progress, right? It isn't the finished article. So for people having to go at the costume, it's done purposely because it's a work in progress, like this character, like this vigilante, right? So what are the chances of a young Clark Kent crossing paths with this kind of young Bruce Wayne who's just getting started? Well, this is something this was hinted about in the Gotham TV series, which they couldn't get agreement from DC Comics to do, by the way. I think it's interesting. It's something I'd be very, very excited about. But how are they going to do this? Who are they going to get to play a young Clark Kent if it happens? And I think it's just going to be a little cameo. I think they'll definitely cross paths. Whether they talk and he says, look, I'm Clark Kent, and hey, I'm Bruce Wayne. Or maybe Bruce Wayne saves young Clark Kent. I mean, why would he need to do that? He's still got powers as young Clark. Anyway, I don't really know. No one has said this to me. I just kind of was making my bed this morning, and of course all I think about is DC, Superman, Batman, and all the DC characters, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I was thinking, a young Clark Kent crossing paths with Batman. You must remember they're setting up a kind of a new Earth here. I believe this is Earth 1. This is the prime Earth they're setting up in Matt Reeves' The Batman. And I believe J.J. Abrams' Superman will be part of this universe as well. And so I think there's every opportunity to kind of bring in a young version of Matt Reeves' The Batman. That would be very, 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 very exciting to meet this young Clark Kent. So I would be absolutely for that. And I don't know how you would feel about that. I think it's a great opportunity. And as I say, we're kind of in this situation where we're saying, is Matt Reeves the Batman in the DCEU? Isn't he in the DCEU? Everything's in the DCEU, even the Joker. But we're talking about multiple Earths. We're talking about Elseworlds. And I'm talking about Matt Reeves the Batman and J.J. Abrams as Superman being set up in this Earth 1. So what Snyder's doing is Earth 2, Earth 3, 56, or whatever. It could be anything. I think they're setting up kind of this multiple Earth story, right? A Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of story. And I think this is what they're doing. So this is all very exciting and very interesting. So I will keep you updated if there's any news of that happening. But I am sniffing something on the circuit that we could see as a cameo, a young Clark Kent crossing paths with a kind of a younger Batman, or even Bruce Wayne dressed up as himself. So we will definitely keep our eyes peeled on that one. Some things that Heroic Hollywood do that I haven't got time for when they talk about the Justice League being Zack Snyder's Justice League being a one and done and things like that. There's certainly things we don't want to hear, whether they're telling the truth or not. But I tell you what, they do some interesting things, and Humberto Gonzalez has done a great video on their newly formed YouTube channel talking about Bane and the possibility of Bane being in the Batman. We've just been talking about a young Clark Kent being in the Batman. Now, I got halfway through this video and I thought, he's actually telling us all the history of Bane. I never knew any of this. And they didn't do this in The Dark Knight Rises either. So this is very interesting stuff. So actually, he even talks about originally them wanting to do a standalone Bane movie in the echoes of what they did with Todd Phillips' The Joker movie starring Joaquin Phoenix, which would be awesome when you listen to the history of this character. So we're going to listen to Humberto's video, then we're going to unpackage it and discuss it. But when you listen to it, you'll know why I'm playing it for you. Really interesting.
We're still a little more than a year away from seeing Robert Pattinson protect Gotham City from a number of villains in Matt Reeves' upcoming The Batman. But it seems like the man who broke the bat might be heading to a future sequel. Fans have seen numerous versions of Bane over the years, with different movies, shows, and games all adding their own spin on his backstory after being brought up in a prison on Santa Prisca. Like many fans already know, he engages in a war against the Dark Knight, trying to push him to the edge. In one of the most iconic scenes in comic book history, taking place in Batman number 497, Bane broke the Batman over his knee. We've only properly witnessed the moment in live action back in 2012, with Tom Hardy delivering a great modern take on Bane. Let's hope the next version gives the villain a little more breathing room. We also saw Shane West step into the role on TV in Gotham's final season. Although he never gets to hug out on Venom, he does don a respirator similar to Hardy. Obviously, fans have seen Bane in all of his leotard-wearing glory back in the dreadful Batman and Robin, but that version was just mere muscle rather than a criminal mastermind. But hey, at least we got to see what a Venom dose looks like before Batgirl and Robin defeated him anyway. Most recently, a comical version of the villain won over fans in the animated Harley Quinn series. He might be a parody of Tom Hardy in The Dark Knight Rises, but he also wears a comic-accurate look with the red and white mask design. It's pretty safe to say he's not the tactical genius comic book readers are used to, but instead, he's the butt of some brilliant jokes from the Harley Quinn writers. However, a potential project for the villain would have seen a much more serious vision on the big screen. After the surprise success of Joaquin Phoenix's award-winning Joker, Heroic Hollywood has exclusively learned that there was going to be an attempt to pitch a Bane standalone film to DC executives. In a similar way to the Todd Phillips film, it could have offered filmmakers a chance to explore the villain's psyche with a character study, although hopefully with a little more brawling. Much like Joker avoided leaning on the cape and cowl too much, it's probable that Bane's solo film would not have featured the iconic hero. However, a potential pitch for the film would have loosely used the Vengeance of Bane story from the comics as the basis for the script. The plot would have introduced Bane to the DC universe, revealing that his tragic origin began before he was even born. Since Batman is key to his motivation across the arc, the Bat could have existed somewhere in the film, even if it was just as a looming presence over Gotham City. But let's look at the Vengeance of Bane story and what we might have seen from the project. Batman, Vengeance of Bane introduced the villain to readers for the first time, exploring his birth in Peñaduro, a prison in Santa Prisca. Bane's mother was heavily pregnant when she was captured, following a bloody civil war that his revolutionary father had been killed in. The corrupt government decided the rebel's unborn son should carry out the punishment. The boy was raised in the infirmary until his mother's death, with the prison warden putting the 6-year-old in with the rest of the inmates. Again, clearly ethics aren't an issue in Santa Prisca. The child had a violent upbringing, even watching the guards feed his mother's corpse to the sharks in the water surrounding the prison. The boy became a product of his environment, violently murdering an inmate who wanted to own him. Discovering the horrific scene, one of the guards cried out, "He's a bane to everything that is holy." And so the legendary villain began to emerge. And just to tease his future obsession with Batman, his constant nightmares involved being terrorized by a giant bat while a vision of his potential future pushed him to endure the horrors of the prison. The story moves on as he's placed in solitary confinement for 10 years. At night, he'd be hounded by rats and crabs before the ocean's rising tide floods his cell. There's no doubt the readers of Tom King's recent Batman run will recognize some of that imagery. He spends his time refusing to give in to fear, finally killing the bat in his nightmare, which later leads him to believe killing Batman is his destiny. After his long spell in solitary is finished, he spends his time absorbing as much knowledge from as many books as he can read, meditating instead of sleeping, and of course, getting those all-important gains in the prison gym. Before too long, the sadistic warden volunteers him for a drug trial run by a mysterious group of scientists, and it's here that he gets his iconic venom infusion. The serum stimulates his adrenal glands as well as fusing the left and right hemispheres of his brain. After faking his death and fighting off the sharks that ate his mother's body, Bane returns to the prison to kill the warden and liberate the trio of prisoners that were loyal to him. They already told him about Gotham and how it became Batman's city after dark. After years of being plagued by his nightmarish visions, he traveled to Gotham to take Bruce down, seeing their future confrontation as the manifestation of his destiny. Bane helps one of his gang get revenge on a crime boss in a bid to draw out Batman into the open so the villain could study his opponent. This point in the book would have been the perfect place to end the solo film, with Batman on his way to a bloody crime scene as Bane watches on from afar. If the audience never actually saw the hero, only glimpsing bat-like shadows and haunting imagery, it could really capture the horror of Bane's nightmares. Anyway, following a brief skirmish, Bane quickly deduces the Cape Crusader has a rule against killing and vows to break Batman before making Gotham his playground. What comes next is the legendary Nightfall story arc, where Bane slowly chips away at Bruce's sanity. He unleashes a horde of villains on Gotham and watches the Dark Knight struggle to contain the fallout. When Bane finally figures out the hero's true identity, he attacks him in Wayne Manor when he's too exhausted to defend himself. And, in one of DC's most iconic moments, Bane snaps Batman's back, leaving him a paraplegic. The second Vengeance of Bane volume saw the villain imprisoned in Blackgate Prison and develops his arc even further from the first part of the story. It continues to show Bane's impressive talent for recruiting other villains into his net, eventually working with KGBeast and Ratcatcher to ensure his escape. After finally hooking himself back up to a venom supply, he discovers a shocking truth that his dead father might have survived the revolution. Although the second book continued to develop the character's journey even further than before, it's likely that the films would have only adapted the first volume. It's a perfect origin tale for fans familiar with the comics as well as general audiences. But Heroic Hollywood recently learned the bittersweet reason why the idea for a Bane solo movie was shot down. An insider with knowledge of the project tells Heroic Hollywood that the idea to use Vengeance of Bane for a Joker-esque standalone film was shot down before even being pitched because Bane is officially off the table in the event that Warner Brothers might use him in a future Batman film. While this doesn't tell us much about the future of Matt Reeves' film, it's possible that the hulking villain might take aim at Robert Pattinson in the future. With all the shots we've seen of the new Batsuit, it's hard not to wonder what an accurate version of Bane could look like in the mythos Reeves and Pattinson are crafting. While Tom Hardy's iconic take on the character gave us a modern translation of the Nightfall tale, he wasn't pumped up on Venom. That was just Hardy's bulked-up physique. Thanks to the Batman's seemingly modern gothic tone, bringing Bane to Gotham in search of Batman could be fascinating. Perhaps adding a dose of body horror would help a new Bane stand out from previous iterations. Having venom pump through your veins, stretching your skin, and rapidly enhancing your physique has got to be painful, right? Because Matt Reeves previously mentioned he'll heavily focus on Bruce's skills as the world's greatest detective, Bane can't just be a simple, violent brawler. He'll need to be shown as the villainous mastermind that he is in the comic book pages. And if the sequel blended elements from Nightfall to push Pattinson's Dark Knight to the edge, it would be a perfect way of introducing even more villains from his rogues gallery, especially if Bane's the one to break them all out of Arkham Asylum. We already know that Paul Dano's Riddler, Colin Farrell's Penguin, and Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman are set to appear in the Batman. Naturally, a sequel could surely double down on the villain count. A great example of how Bane could be portrayed is in Arkham Origins. The game sees the villain already out of Santa Prisca and searching for a way to cure his venom addiction while also pursuing Batman to vanquish the Bat-figure from his nightmares. He even deduced Bruce's identity before using a new batch of venom called TN1, which could be used without a storage tank. It proves to be a crucial mistake as the new serum caused severe memory loss and Bane quickly forgot Batman's true identity. The Arkham series proved there's plenty of interesting ways to develop these characters in new, fascinating ways. Let's hope Bane returns if that elusive Arkham Knight sequel ever materializes. But now comes the all-important question. Who should don the mask to hunt Batman through Gotham's urban jungle? DC fans have long wished to see MCU alum Dave Bautista in the role, referring back to his physique and performances in films like Guardians of the Galaxy, Blade Runner 2049, and Spectre to prove that he could manage a primary role. We've seen plenty of designs over the years showing Bautista in the iconic costume, so it would be great to see him let loose against the Bat. The star even told fans on Twitter that he'd love to accept the challenge of the role. If Matt Reeves, however, is looking for someone who could duel Robert Pattinson in a mental game as well as a physical challenge, perhaps Javier Bardem would be a good choice for the DC sequel. His work in Skyfall as the Bond villain Raul Silva proves just how well he could deliver a criminal mastermind with a grudge, and his intimidating performance as the hitman in No Country for Old Men just shows off the intensity he could bring to the role. But while we wait for more information on Bane's potential return to the big screen, keep an eye on Heroic Hollywood for all the latest entertainment news. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out our other videos. Let us know in the comments who you...
Well, it's interesting because I do believe Umberto. I do believe that he's got exclusive news that they were going to do like a Bane origin movie like they did with Joker, right? And then they decided not to. Probably because he's going to be in the Batman. Umberto, you surprised me. Don't you see what's going on here? How can we have the whole kind of rogues gallery in the Batman? What are you going to do? You're going to go to this place, that place? It doesn't make sense, right? We know that the Batman is this noir, right? Kind of whodunit investigation into a murder that the Batman is going around investigating. We see, the greatest detective, which Batman has always been in the comics and the graphic novels. So what he has to do is he has to go into Arkham Asylum. Now, bear with me, and this is a young Batman, an inexperienced Batman. He goes into Arkham Asylum to question all these people about something they may know about this murder or who could have done it, right? Then all of a sudden, Bane comes in and breaks the lot of them out. Imagine that. Now, I never knew about any of Bane's comic book origins. And thinking about those origins and thinking about what they did with him in The Dark Knight Rises, I'm kind of disappointed. But The Dark Knight Rises was a mishmash. It was a rushed movie, and Nolan seemed to... It's like he didn't really want to make the film. It was great in a way, but it also seemed a bit of a mishmash. Anyway, after finding out what this character's origins are in the comics, we've got to see this. So how about this? We actually see Bane's origin story in this movie. Right, we see the origin story, then we meet Robert Pattinson's the Batman, this murder happens, and then Robert Pattinson goes into Arkham Asylum, and then Bane, all hell breaks loose, and basically Bane and Batman have to have this awesome fight in Arkham Asylum. Now, this is interesting because, as I say, this has been described as a noir movie, but could the end fight be like 25 minutes, half an hour, with Bane and the rest of the Rogues Gallery in Arkham Asylum, excuse me, with the Batman basically surrounded by all these insane lunatic criminals and him having to defend himself, fight them, trying to escape? Wouldn't that be awesome, right? And this would actually explain why. So let me just underline my theory again. A Bane origin story, copied and pasted from this graphic novel that Umberto was talking about. because I like that. As a writer, I like it so much, and how nobody's ever used this in live action is ridiculous. He should have got his standalone movie, but never mind. We could see this origin in the opening of The Batman. Meanwhile, there's a murder. A young Bruce Wayne is investigating it, right? Maybe he goes off to Metropolis, or maybe he's in Smallville and bumps into a young Clark Kent. Whatever, right? Anyway, this murder happens, and he's in Gotham. He needs to talk to the Rose Gallery. He goes into Arkham Asylum, and then after we see Bane's origin story, Bane's in there. He's in there to break them out, or whatever he's up to, or he's found out Batman's there, and then Batman, played by Robert Pattinson, is stuck in Arkham Asylum with all these lunatics, and it all kicks off, just like the Arkham game. Imagine that. Wouldn't that be awesome? Maybe I've tapped onto what the plot for Matt Reeves' The Batman would be. And if this is what we're getting, and by the way, forget the first one, the first actor Umberto said should play Bane, definitely should be Javier Bardem. He is a brilliant actor, but it won't happen. Someone else will play him. But anyway, really excited about that. It was really interesting, and I hope you were interested in that video about Bane's history and everything, because it's really interesting. He's got an interesting history, and as I say, I'm really surprised no one's tapped into that. And this does really make me even more excited for the Batman. It also explains, everyone was complaining about Robert not working out that much and not looking that bigger. This is, again, work in progress. He isn't the Batman of Ben Affleck, who's working out a lot. Ben Affleck's Batman has to work out because he's older. He has to keep in shape. Christian Bale's Batman was fit. He worked out, but it wasn't overly done. As Val Kilmer was pretty fit, but not overly. So there's been different ones, but obviously this is a Batman in progress, as we said before. So he's not going to be the finished article. But if the plot's going to be what I've just said it's going to be, I don't know about you, but that's really exciting. Now, talking about the Arkham Asylum game, right? I don't understand Warner Brothers, right, and their media teams. Why haven't they got a Superman game? They've done some great stuff with Batman games. Why are we still waiting after all these years for a Superman game? Sort it out, Warner Media. It's more money upon money to make. Take advantage of your IP, for crying out loud. Well, have you got bored of people arguing on Twitter? No, have I. So yesterday I read out on a video I did here, a very quick video yesterday, about the Cultured Nerd breaking that there is a Ben Affleck, the Batman straight-to-streaming TV series or movie being developed right now, right? And HBO Max are really interested in this. Thomas Polito, which is a scoop, he's not very happy with the Cultured Nerd, and he's blatantly calling them liars. Now, let's just say the Cultured Nerd is literally a Zack Snyder fanboy, right? Which he pretty much is, right? Let's be clear on that. Now, it doesn't mean he's lying, but it did seem like a theory-based article, and that's okay, right? And that's okay. What I don't understand is, why is Thomas Polito getting so angry? This is what happens when you tread on these people's toys. You see, obviously, the Cultured Nerd are hearing things before the big scoopers like Polito is hearing. Now, what Polito would have done, he would have held on to it for a couple of months and not released it now. But this is a fan. The Cultured Nerd is a nerd. He's a fan. He wants us all to know it straight away. And this is why Thomas Polito isn't happy. So away from that silly debate, how realistic is this? Well, look, HBO Max wants to utilise Zack Snyder's DCEU. Because they know, and they now know, that there's a big fandom there and there's a lot of money and subscribers to be made from it, right? So they want it. So there's no question about it, about them wanting Zack Snyder's DCEU to be kind of platformed as this, straight to streaming TV series or movie series or whatever they've got planned. The key is, and it's like what Davey Pinar said yesterday, the only issue is here whether Ben Affleck, is there two of them, or whether Ben Affleck actually is willing to do it. Now, we know the backstory here. It was very hard for Ben. He was suffering with his addictions and his alcoholism, and he was going through a hard time during BBS as well. And then there was the interference during BVS, and Justice League was even worse. So it didn't end up very well. And I also think that maybe he felt a little bit disappointed with Zack. I don't think they fell out or anything like that. But now there's an opportunity for the two to work together. He's came out and congratulated Zack. So obviously they're okay with each other. So I think Ben wants to do this. Look, I think if Ben doesn't do this, it's going to be a gap in his CV. This is something that began, and it was going to have a middle, and it was going to have an ending. And I think for an actor who's so invested in DC and Batman, it would be a mistake and not to do this. So I definitely think it's going to happen. It's going to happen, but don't expect any announcements anytime soon. Right, let's go with this other thing going on right now, which is the Joker, Jared Leto's Joker, who's also being rumoured for his own part as part of the HBO Max side of the DCEU. But also, we're going back to last year, and Chris Wong Svensson asked Zack on Vero if the Joker was in his Justice League movie. Zack didn't verbally confirm that, but he did like Chris's comment. Now, the way you can kind of escape saying something that you're not allowed to say through agreements with your studio, isn't breaking any rules. So if you're a producer or a director, you can like something and they can't do nothing to you. And this is what Zack was doing, by the way. So was Joker written to be in Justice League, or is there film? Did they film Jared Leto's The Joker in Justice League? Here's my theory. I think it's in the script, but it wasn't shot. I could be wrong. But Zack Snyder's at least been given $100 million to do what he's doing right now. And I think it wouldn't be too difficult to bring back Jared Leto to play his Joker in any form, in a cameo or whatever he was going to do with Jared Leto's Joker in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I expect to see him in it when we see it, whether it's the first series of Zack Snyder's Justice League or Series 2, Justice League 2 or Justice League 3 or whatever they're planning. I expect to see Jared Leto's Joker very much in the HBO Max side of the DCEU. Maybe not in movies, but maybe on that side of the platform, which would be really brilliant. Now let's talk about Ewan McGregor's Roman villain in The Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. Right, this character was meant to have toxic masculinity commentary on it. But do you know what I saw from young LGBTQ men? They were mimicking him. They looked up to him. They wanted to be like him. So I'm sorry, Kathy Yan and Margot Robbie, you failed. Who was the most popular character in Birds of Prey? Was it the females? It wasn't even Harley Quinn, who we all love, and I think she was great in the movie. It was Ewan McGregor's Roman, right? I've given up saying the surname, so I'm not, because I can't say it, right? Roman Sifonis or whatever, Sionis, or whatever it is, right? Anyway. So young LGBTQ men were looking up to him. In fact, it wasn't just young LGBTQ men looking up to him. A lot of the community, and this is ironic, more people from the LGBTQ community looked up to Roman's character than they did to Ruby Rose's Batwoman, which wasn't the idea. And this is when SJWs kind of walk by a brick, but they don't see the brick and they trip over. They don't understand what they're doing. They're trying to create commentary, but the commentary doesn't work. Everyone loved Roman. So although he is a toxic male in it, right? And by the way, he's a toxic gay male in it as well. Is that the kind of commentary that you wanted, Kathy? Really? Really? Is that what you wanted to shadow to the LGBTQ community? Really, Kathy? And this is what I mean. These people should just stick to telling stories rather than, perceiving to know a whole community that's made of individuals with different ideologies and mentalities. This is the problem when you label people and you put people in groups. You get yourself in a lot of trouble. Ruby Rose was a very unpopular choice for Batwoman. The LGBTQ community were very offended by her casting. This is what I mean. You are trying to do something for a whole group of people, but you're not dealing with groups. You're dealing with individuals. So that's why I feel that character, and everyone loved that character, by the way, including me, but it wasn't how she wanted it, or should I say, how Margot Robbie wanted it to go down. So basically, the whole aim of the movie, which is the commentary on the villain, didn't work. But I tell you what, Black Mask, aka Roman, is one of the best villains in DCEU history. So thank you, Kathy. You may have not meant to do it, but you created a bit of an icon, a male icon, a male LGBTQ icon. How does those beans feel you, eh? Don't worry, everyone. Our old friend Grace Randolph is still around. She's okay, and she's back on Twitter, winding new people winding new people up. It's the DCEU fandom. Welcome. Once the cultured nerd broke the news that HBO Max want to develop a Backflex series, straight-to-streaming series or movie, she was out saying, "I'm quite sure HBO Max want to do it, but nothing's in discussion right now." Right, Grace, I know you have no emotional intelligence, right? But I want you to understand something. If a powerful company like HBO Max want to do something, but they're not in conversations at this very second, it isn't a negative thing. Because does that mean they could be in conversations a minute later, an hour later, a day later? Do you know what I mean? What you're saying, Grace, is irrelevant. You're basically trying to... You don't like the fact that someone else has come out with this and you're trying to temper it and make out you're the one with the power in the information. Maybe you have sources, maybe you don't. I mean, basically, Grace, let's not forget you were accused of being a liar by a director in Kathy Yan. And you're back days later doing the same thing again. You're doing it because you liked what Kathy Yan done to you, because it brings legs to your platform. Because it doesn't matter if people like you or not. They're still coming to you because everybody's talking about you and to you. Anyway, right, forget about Grace. These things are happening. Zack Snyder's DCEU is back. It's going to be on HBO Max. They're putting a lot of trust and faith in Zack, as they should. They're giving him money. We should all be so pumped and excited. It's awesome, right? So forget about these idiots who are trying to tread on our toys. They can't anymore. We know more than they do, right? Because if we want to know anything, we run over to Vero and we ask Zack. And that's it for today, everyone. So are you excited for the Batman? Would you like to see a Bane origin movie or it done on the Batman movie? How do you think? What do you think it would? How do you think it would play out on my version of the Batman movie, if you like seeing Bane's origin story, seeing him break into Arkham, trying to break out villains, and then Batman stuck in Arkham Asylum with all these villains. I think this is the way we're going to meet all these villains. So it could be very, very epic. And who knows what they're going to do, but that makes more logic. So comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. I'll see you again soon.